Welcome to 1000 PS, welcome to Valencia, welcome to a hugely important bike because this is the new Multistrada V2 S from Ducati. Now the similarities between this bike and the old bike is the name, because that's still a Multistrada. I think the calipers are the same, I think the discs are the same, but everything else is completely new. So I reckon this is about 95% a new model. Now for that very reason, I've got a bucket load of notes. So during this piece to camera, if I keep looking at my crotch, that's not because I'm a bit weird, it's just because I'm generally looking at my notes. So let's go through the engine. There's a good place to start. So this is no longer the Desmo engine, and Ducati claim that this is their lightest ever V-twin. Now bear in mind, they used to make air-cooled V-twins, which I thought would be lighter. That's quite a significant claim. So it's 890cc, it's making 85 kilowatts of power at 10,750 RPM or 92 Newton meters at 8,250 RPM. And those who've got a keen eye for detail will know that's a little bit more RPM, a little bit down in torque compared to the old bike, and torque is higher in the RPM. But I'll come on to that a little bit later. In terms of chassis, completely new. There is nothing on this chassis that will fit the old bike. Trellis frame, aluminium monocoque chassis. Overall weight is 18 kilograms lighter than the old bike. So 18 kilograms is about the same weight as 2 fully loaded panniers, or maybe a small dog, which gives me two questions. How have they managed to save that much weight? And what the hell was the old bike made of to be 18 kilograms heavier than that? They've managed to save 1.5 kilograms on the new wheels, which is unsprung mass, which is a massive weight saving. And again, you're like, how do they keep saving weight? What do they make the old bike of to make this one lighter? And if they make this 18 kilograms lighter in 3 more years, then I'm going to be amazed. I digress slightly. Because we've got a lighter chassis, because we've got a new engine that's a little bit more revier and less capacity, we've got completely new rider aids, because obviously you need completely new rider aids for new algorithms and new traction control. So it's a Ducati, so we've got Ducati wheelie control, Ducati traction control, cornering ABS and multiple rider modes. So let me go through these multiple rider modes without looking at my crotch. So we've got Sport, Touring, Urban, Wet and Enduro. Wet is the new mode. You could argue, do you need the wet mode because it's so close to the urban mode? But we've got wet mode now as an added extra. In terms of rider aids, we've got 8 levels of traction control, 8 levels of wheelie control, 3 levels of engine brake strategy and 3 levels of ABS. What's interesting with the ABS is that level 2 and 3 is cornering ABS, as you'd have on the road. ABS 1 is for off-road, to be used in enduro mode. So in ABS 1, you have ABS on the front, nothing on the back, and you can turn the ABS off completely should you wish to. In terms of traction control, 1 and 2 is designed to be ridden off-road on loose. And then 3 and above is to be done on the road. And if you turn off the traction control and the wheelie control, which you can do for immature reasons, they stay off. So if you switch off the ignition and switch it back on again, they all stay off. So it's complete overhaul of chassis, complete overhaul of engine, complete overhaul of switchgear, complete new dash, still the manual screen, cruise control comes as standard, quick shifter 2.0, new trellis frame, new swinging arm, new exhaust. As I say, 95% a new bike, which is considerably lighter with a little bit more power than before. So let's get to the good points. The good points for me, apart from the desirability and the looks, because at the end of the day, this is a Ducati that is making MotoGP bikes and World Superbikes win and dominate everything in racing, is the lightness and the handling and the ease of use. This is an incredibly light and agile bike for the category it's in. So I've ridden all of the competition, which I'll come on to shortly, but this has got to be by far the lightest, easiest handling bike in this category. We've got the roads today have been incredibly twisty, like hairpin, switchback. And what you notice on a light bike compared to a heavier bike is not so much when you're around town, but it's that transition. So when you're going from big lean right to big lean left, constantly going through hairpin to hairpin, or when you're going from roundabout to roundabout, and you notice the lightness, you notice the agility, you'd almost question the 19-inch front wheel because it feels like it's got a 17 because it's so agile and easy. You also notice the lack of, I don't know what the technical term is, but I think you could call it chugness. So the old bike was a little bit chuggy at low RPM, you go ba, 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 where this is really smooth on the bottom, really smooth fueling. You can change it depending if you're in urban and wet and enduro, but the fueling is always really, really good. The quick shifter is very precise, very race bike-like almost, very light, great gearbox. You don't really have to use the clutch. That's redundant almost as you leave town. The comfort has not been in question. For me, it was something I only had to think about on the ride back because I was thinking I need to do my piece to camera, I need to mention comfort. And I was like, well, I don't really need to mention comfort because comfort is excellent. In terms of seat heights, there's an optional high seat, an optional low seat, a lowering suspension kit, and then this seat you could undo, change the bungs underneath and have it between 830 and 850 mil standard. I've had it at 850 mil all day. I'm 5'7", never a problem. There is a way of reducing the preload by touching a button. When you hit the button, it takes off the preload and it lets the rear end sit, which lowers the suspension a decent amount depending on how much you weigh. I can't measure it precisely because if you're heavy and you've got a pillion and you've got loads of luggage and you take the preload, the seat will lower more than a lighter rider, which you could question that I am. So easy to manage at low speeds, easy to manage at high speeds. The engine likes to rev. Peak power is nearly 11,000 RPM, so it does like to rev. You can have some fun, you can make it have it. When you come back to touring mode, again, it likes to rev, it likes to have fun, it likes to have enjoyment, it's easy and fun to ride. But the difference between sport and touring is not too great. So when you're in touring mode, it doesn't turn into this bouncy, blamongy, evil handling thing. It's just a little bit more comfortable. But when you up the pace, it almost comes up to sports mode. There's not a huge amount of difference. Same with urban and wet. I'd question how much of a difference there is. They both feel very, very similar and enjoyable and easy to do at low speeds. But for me, I spent a lot of the time in touring mode, to be honest. This morning, as soon as it dried out, I was straight into sports mode thinking I need sports mode. But on the way back then, through the countless switchbacks, I was in touring mode. So we've got good handling, we've got a good engine, it likes to rev, we've got multiple rider aids, as you'd expect, we've got multiple rider modes. In terms of negativities, there's one or two that have just raised their eyebrow a little bit. This morning, I couldn't really get used to the switchgear. It took me a while to get used to it. It's probably because it's brand new switchgear and I'm so used to the Multistrada V2 S, I was trying to use comparisons between the V2 S Multistrada and the V2 S. And it's different switchgear, it's a different dash even though it looks a little bit similar. So you have to kind of relearn it. But by the time I was coming back after lunch, I was familiar with it and I got used to it. And I love the three options of the dash. So you've got different dashes that you can use. And I preferred the one where you can see the torque, you can see the power, and you can see what rider modes you've got and how much traction you've got. Really enjoyed doing that and enjoyed the fact that if I switch something off, it stays off. The way you reduce the preload is by hitting a button. It's not automatic like it is on the V2 S. And the button is on the same side as the brake lever. So when I'm braking and I want to hit the button, I can't do it because I don't have 6 fingers, even though some people think I might, I don't. So that's a little bit of an awkward position. The Brembo brakes are really strong. The Brembo and Ducati, that combination has always provided us with strong brakes. But I think I was just expecting really sharp, strong brakes. The good brakes, the strong brakes, they're going to be more than adequate even when you're fully loaded. But I think I was just expecting something maybe a little bit sharper. And the auto blipper, I've just had a few little mischanges with that. But this is well, not this bike, but the bike I've been riding was a pre-production model. So I think Ducati just need to fine tune that quick shifter, and I'm sure they'll get that sorted because every Ducati I've ever ridden with a quick shifter has worked perfectly. But because these are pre-production, I think there's a few little gremlins in there on the quick shifter. And then finally, is the price, which is open for discussion because the S model is £16,500 their nearest damn it, which is what you'd expect from Ducati for a V2 S. It's only a little bit more than the previous bike, despite it being a completely new bike. And at 16,500, you expect a Ducati to be desirable, you expect it to be luxury, you expect it to be high-end. These are the guys winning in World Supers, these are the guys winning in MotoGP. So you expect to pay a little bit more for that premium product. The only problem is, when you're at £16,500, you're going against bikes with bigger capacity, which have more torque and more low-down drive. So you've got Africa Twins and Tiger Sports. You could argue KTM 890 is in there. You're even, once you get it fully spec'd with luggage, you're getting towards GS money, as in base GS money. And that's where I think the problems may arise, is when we put it against the competition due to price. If people are buying this bike because it's desirable, it's luxurious, it's good handling, it's got a revvy motor, it's enjoyable to ride, then they're going to be extremely happy. But I think maybe somebody coming from an Africa Twin is going to miss that low down drive from 2,000 to 3,500 RPM. But then when you compare the Africa Twin or maybe the Tiger to this in terms of handling and weight, then you're not comparing the same. It's so much more agile and so much more sporty. So what you're gaining with one bit, you're losing with the other. And I think the big question for us at 1,000 PS is, at 16,500, what is the competition? And how is it going to fare against the competition? In my mind, because I've ridden most of the competition, I don't think there's a bike in this class that will handle as well as the Multistrada. I don't think there's a bike in this class that's going to be as enjoyable or as desirable as the Multistrada. I think there's going to be bikes in this class that might have a little bit more drive low down, a little bit more torque, from like 2,000 to 4,000 RPM-ish, but they are going to be heavier and a little bit more bulky. And also, we don't know what this bike is going to be like off-road. And I've ridden the other bikes off-road, and some of those are really good. So I can't wait to try this, because it's got off-road skyhook suspension in enduro mode. It's got off-road biased ABS with that ABS just on the front, none on the back, or no ABS at all. And we've got off-road traction control in 1 and 2. So that's going to be interesting when we put this bike against the competition off-road. But in terms of first impressions, it's a hugely important bike for Ducati. It's considerably lighter, it's considerably more agile, it's friendlier, it's more usable, it's excellent rider aid, it's desirable, it's good looking. It's just going to be interesting when we get it against the competition.